Hello there, and you're very welcome to the Arkham Avengers podcast. You join me, the host, along with Eamon, Hector, and Captain Fantastical Mick. Join us for some chat about football, crack, bold opinions, and a touch of chaos. From drama to questionable decisions, there's something here for everyone. So sit back, stay tuned, and enjoy the show. Welcome back once again to this episode where football opinions and other opinions are plentiful, chip strategies can be questionable, and somehow Hector is still submitting expenses all the way from Brazil despite not sending us a single audio report about the football. This episode is going to be part 2 of our look at how the managers got on with their chip strategies. We're looking at the top 5 managers on this episode, and last week we counted down from 11th down to 6th. This week we're looking at 5th all the way to numero uno, and we're going to have a look and see who the villains were and who the heroes were and who made a success of their chips. Joining me as always are 2 men who have never needed a wildcard to reinvent themselves. Eamon and Captain Fantastical Mick are here with me. Lads, you're very welcome to this episode. Well, it's great to be back, and I hope all our listeners are keeping well. I think back to when we weren't on the air, and now you can't keep us off the air. We're shooting out episodes like, they're going out of fashion, which is great. I'm not complaining. It's nice to be here. I'm expecting a lot of information to be forthcoming about what these managers done regarding their chip strategies and how they played their chips. I think there could be lessons for other managers to learn here.
And hello to everyone. Yeah, it's Mick here. I agree with Eamon. I think we're going to have an interesting show. I think we're going to get an opportunity to see what strategies these 5 managers decided to use and how does it work, how does it compare, are they similar to each other, or we've got little differences. I'm interested in those little nuances there.
Well, before we get into the fantasy football, there's been plenty happening elsewhere. Weather has finally remembered it's supposed to be summer. The barbecues were all out and dusted down. Irish people have been spotted wearing shorts after 15 minutes of sunshine. We're all pretending that it's going to last until September. Well, there's no chance of that now, I can tell you, because this is Ireland.
Yeah, I'd say about Thursday, somebody's going to be building an ark here. I don't know where you lads have been, but been bucketed in rain where I've been, I nearly had to get a canoe out at one point, and I've gone around with winter clothes on, It's June, it's July. I'm freezing some of these ones. I've got woolly cardigans on and woolly jumpers. I think I'm going to be going down to Spain a couple of these weeks just to get, Camino walking and get a bit of sunshine, I think.
That's a good idea to go for the Camino walk, Mick. I think you should go for that, yeah, and keep on walking. Okay, well, let's have a quick mention firstly about the Mayo GAA team, because they're back in the All-Ireland semi-final after beating Cork by 23 points to 18, and the next team they're going to meet is going to be Louth. Who would have thought that when you 2 lads were up in Clonus, Mayo would still be keeping the dream of winning an All-Ireland alive?
Well, you see, everybody loves a dream, don't the host? And fair play to Louth. They played 14 men against Monaghan for most of that game, and they put it up to them there. Fair play. And I think Monaghan played really well, but just they couldn't get the better of Louth. You've got to get hats off to Louth there.
Yes, the 2 of us were there in Clonus when Monaghan played Mayo. I think it was a hard one for Monaghan. They had the extra man, and they had spells where it looked like it was there for them to win, but the problem was Louth just kept coming. And when you have a team that's showing that sort of audacity, that determination, the fact that they lost a man seemed to inject the impetus into them to play as though there was 20 men on that pitch. That's not taking away from Monaghan. That's very tough for Monaghan, because sometimes when a team goes down to 14 players, the team gets on top and then it's hard to roll it back because you're missing the player, of course. But Louth didn't let that happen, and I think they were fairly evenly matched, and it's just Louth came out on top. That was that. So it's going to be Mayo versus Louth in one of the semi-finals, and then it's Dublin versus Kerry in the other. So proper old school heavyweight stuff on one side, and Mayo trying to avoid being the team that lets the Louth fairy tale keep on rolling there. While Mayo fans will be confident now, which is always dangerous if you ask me. And I think the minute Mayo people start smiling in July, the rest of Ireland starts checking the sky for omens.
Well, look, as you said, Mayo, they're marching on, Monaghan bow out, Louth are living the dream, and Dublin and Kerry are pretending, they're not eyeing each other up, but they really are. They're like 2 lads outside supermarkets at closing time.
Now, Eamon, I know this is a delicate subject. Scotland's World Cup adventure is over.
It is. We waited many years to get back into the World Cup. Well, Scotland did, and now they're out before any of the postcards arrive back home. Look, they bet Haiti and they gave Morocco a decent game, but then Brazil reminded us why they're Brazil. That was going to be a tall order, I have to say there. And it's just unfortunate they let in a few extra goals and that's it. Their trip to America is now cut short. They can come back to the lovely climate in Scotland and get ready for the Scottish Premiership, and other players will be returning to clubs and training, and such is life. That's the unfortunate thing about the World Cup at times. But I would have thought that with that group, Scotland would have come second. They didn't. There's a few upsets in this World Cup. It's keeping us on our toes, I have to say. One of the main questions I've got to ask is, has anybody heard from Hector the last few days?
I haven't heard a peep out of him. There hasn't been even a postcard in recent days there.
Well, I'll tell you, I sent them 3 WhatsApps. One message has a single great tick on it, and the second isn't even left the phone. And the third one somehow came back translated into Portuguese with a picture of a coconut. So I don't know what's going on with him there.
Well, in fairness, we've sent him messages through WhatsApp. We did email him and we caught him on Instagram. Yes, folks, he's on Instagram. If you want to look up Hector's Hellos, you'll find him there. And there, we've even considered carrier pigeons and smoke signals, and even thought we might have to contact the Brazilian and the Irish embassies to see if they can track him down there.
Well, maybe he's gone undercover, is he?
You mean he's fallen asleep under the covers? Well, whatever's happened, the communications seem to have completely broken down. So, Hector, if you're listening there, would you send us something, anything at all, even a 10-second video note? Because at this stage, the listeners are going to start thinking that we're making you up. I'm beginning to think we're making them up myself at this point. Okay, right. Then, enough of the weather and Hector, let's get back to what we're here for. We're counting down the top 5 managers, looking at how they used their chips, where they gained an advantage, where they left points behind, and which decision ultimately helped shape the final standings. First up is Raglan Road, who finished in 5th place. Mick, you had a look at this manager's chip activity. Tell us about it.
5th for me is a solid finish, I have to say. Like, don't get me wrong, it's a good finish. However, when you look at those chips, it almost feels like it was a good season, just waiting for one big moment that never quite arrived. So it didn't. There was no that's the week that changed the season. Overall though, it's still respectable. You say respectable. That's the word you use when someone turns up to a wedding in a beige suit. So I'm not sure if respectable would be the word I would be using there. Well, if I may continue, let's start with game week 12, when they played the Wildcard and they scored 39 points. The game week average that week was 39 points as well. So after all their planning, all their looking at the players, there was no gain whatsoever. It's more like a reset button as opposed to a rocket boost stat. Well, yeah, well, look, there's nothing gained. There's nothing lost except, well, they used the wildcard, that was it there. So in game week 18, they kicked off with a free hit into play, and that scored them a total of 48 points. The average that week was 44. Not spectacular, you might say, but it's moving them in the right direction. Normally, I'd say a manager is probably hoping when they use a free hit that they're going to make at least 10, 15 points, maybe 20 points if it's a good week there. At least they got points, and that's the main thing. They weren't going backwards. And Mick, I wouldn't be crowing about this for too long if I were you, because 4 points over a game week average, it's hardly going to light up Blackpool. 4 points is like finding a fiver in an old jacket. You're delighted for 30 seconds, and then that's it. There's nothing there afterwards. Okay, Eamon, okay, well, I'll take your point on that. So look, game week 19, the bench boost, and that contributed 10 points. The team scored 43 points, and the average that week was 40 points. So look, 10 points, getting these points in here, 10 points is respectable, I have to say. Look, we had no further activity then until game week 32, and they activated the triple captain. Now, he went for Manchester United, Bruno Fernandes, and he returned to 12 points on that there. So the team scored 52 points overall, and the average was 43 points there.
So that wasn't quite a disaster, so.
No, it's not a disaster there, but I look at that there and I think there was opportunities missed, because Thiago scored 13 points and Virgil scored 9 points. So if he had either one of them, he'd have been laughing all his way to the bank, so he would have been. We move on to game week 33 when they played their bench boost, and overall the team got 86 points when the average was 66. Now that's That's a good return series.
Yeah, that doesn't sound too bad at all. You'd be impressed with that.
Well, yeah, it would be. Until you look at the score from the bench boost. They only got 3 points.
I'm sorry. I thought you said 3 points.
I did, Eamon. I said 3 points.
3 points. I seen more impact from the tea lady coming into the dressing room at half time. Where were they going with 3 points?
Well, I'm not quite sure, but it seems, it didn't work out, and that's the way.
Well, it looks like to me that the team carried the bench boost rather than the other way around.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what it looks like, isn't it? It's not what you wanted. It is what it is. I can't say nothing else about it. But in game week 34, they decided to play a free hit. Now, this is much better. They got 50 points against the average of 36. And finally, in game week 38, they activated the wildcard and scored 44 points. That game week average was 41. So they've got you up on the average there, so they have.
But when I listen to that and I look at the data that you have produced, Mick, there's nothing season defining there. There's a bit of a recurring theme, actually. Nearly every chip gave them a tiny lift, but none of them really changed anything. They didn't really change the direction that this manager was going in there. So, can I ask, what's your verdict here, Mick?
Well, for me, I think Raglan's season was built on consistency rather than chip strategy. They finished 5th because they managed their team well throughout the year. And that's not because the chips got them points, but, plus, actually, they finished the season. They didn't use one of their triple captains from the first half of the season, so they actually didn't use all of their chips there.
That's extraordinary, but it's no surprise. So, Mick, when you put it all together, what are we looking at here?
Well, the chip strategy simply didn't deliver, the desired results. There's no game-changing moment, as Eamon has said there. They squeezed a few points here and there, but it never was enough to make an impact there.
Right, so, well, we're into the top 4 now, and it's time to take a look at Tanaka the Net. They finished in 4th place. Now, Eamon, this one's all yours.
Thanks, host. So, look, overall, this manager has some very good moments. So it all starts at game week 7. When they played a free hit, they scored a total of 83 points, while the game week average was 60. That's what you want from a chip. Straight away, playing that chip is justified. It's getting points in for you. And then we move on to game week 13, when they activated the wild card, and the team scored 45 points. The average was 35. It's a positive return. It's not life-changing or anything. It's 10 points gained. We'll not sniff at that there.
Well, at least when I listen to that, it's the wild card's doing its job quietly. There's no fireworks, but it's solid management there.
Thank you for that, Mick. Yes, that's insightful as always there. But look, okay, so then comes along the triple captain in game week 25, and the captain's armband went to Declan Rice, and he returned 15 points because he was the triple captain there. So overall, the team scored 62 points against an average of 58. Rice, not the worst choice there.
Well, it's not. Well, look, I had a look at the team that game week, Eamon, and there weren't a lot of other options there. So Alan scored 11 points.
How can you say so? There wasn't a lot of other options.
Well, like on hindsight, he's probably thinking Alan's not going to do much there. But when you look back at it now, you kind of think, yeah, he got options. But at the time, he probably didn't think he had these options.
I'm sorry, Mick, you're losing me here a little bit. You're saying, am I right with it, that he didn't have options, but when you look back, he had options? This is Mick getting confused here now. Look, Mick, what are you actually trying to say?
What I'm trying to say is, like, Alan got 11 points, okay? Rodgers was there with 10 points, but when you look back, hindsight, you could have selected either of those two players, but that's hindsight. On the week when he's picking those players, if the triple captain, he's probably looked at who's doing the best there at the moment there. That is probably it. You could argue, yeah, maybe there were a couple of alternatives, but Rice wasn't the worst choice, is what I'm trying to say.
I think I'm still lost here, but I tell you something, it's one of those triple captains that people, they're not going to remember it for years. Nothing spectacular there, I think. But look, as you said, Eamon is 15 points.
Well, they didn't ruin the season. I said,
could I actually just get on with this? And if you've got any questions or any input, can you save them until I'm finished here?
Oh, it's all right. Sorry, I just, at the moment, it came in my head there.
Well, just turn your mic off for a couple of moments there. Okay, so the next stop is game week 29, and there's another free hit played here. So this time, though, things don't go quite to plan for the manager. They scored 49 points, while the average was 54. So, look, that's the danger with the free hit. Sometimes you overthink things, and it backfires on you there.
So I'd say, what, Eamon, looking at playing that chip and losing ground, that has to hurt.
Yeah, well, yeah, it is. It's a bit like bringing your substitute goalkeeper in the last minute of the games, only to discover he's forgotten his gloves there. So, yeah, it was a bit of painful. not great. Anyways, for me, game week 33 though is the highlight of the season. They played their wild card. 116 points. The average was 66. There was goals, there was points, there was assists. The team was alive, and even the bench looked like they wanted to get involved. Everything clicked for the manager. That was a great result there.
That's a wild card that probably secured 4th place for them there. 50 points above the average score. That's enormous, Eamon. It's enormous.
Yes, indeed. And you have not enormously learned how to turn your microphone off just yet. But anyhow, finally we come around to game week 38 and they used their bench boost. But unfortunately, the bench contributed 4 points. Overall, the team scored 77. The average was 41. A decent final game week, nevertheless. Look, the starting 11 did all the heavy work. 4 points from the bench. It's not the return the manager would have been looking for here. And let's remember, this manager didn't use 2 of their chips. They had a triple captain that went unused and they had a bench boost that went unused. This is a manager who clearly could have used extra chips. It would make you think why they wouldn't use that, but there's a pattern with some managers here that don't use their chips, and it's like it's endemic with some managers.
So what's your verdict overall, can I ask?
Well, considering they had a decent season, it still was a bit of a mixed bag when it came to the chips. I mean, there was 2 excellent chips there. The free hit earlier on in the season and that sensational wild card in game week 33. 1 hit backfired. The triple captain was respectable enough there, and look, a bench boost that barely made a ripple. So, average is how I'd put it. Average.
So we're happy enough there with that there. So not every chip landed, but when it mattered, 2 of them came through for them there. Right then, it's on to the bronze medal position. 3rd place this season belongs to toe bobbers. You okay there, Eamon?
I'm perfectly fine. It's Mick who is fiddling with the microphone here, and I know some bolt has dropped out there.
Are you okay, Mick?
I'm alright, yeah, sorry, I know. I was just trying to adjust my microphone there, and some little bolt has just dropped down.
I'll try not to fiddle with it much more and just leave it as it is, and we'll look after it afterwards, okay?
Yeah, sorry. What do you want me to do with this bolt?
Or just leave it on the desk there. Okay, so as I was saying there, 3rd place belongs to toe bobbers. So, Eamon, you've been doing a little bit of digging here through the chip history of this manager. I'm looking forward to hearing about this.
Well, there's plenty to go with this one now, and we're now coming into the serious business of the lads. The 3 lads up at the top here. It starts in game week 10 with the wild card. Now, on paper, 61 points doesn't sound too bad, but the average that week was actually 65 points. So they're already 4 points below par. So it's not an explosive start that you want from your first wild card. When you play that wild card, you're expecting a bang. That didn't happen here. They followed it up immediately in game week 11 with the bench boost, and the team scored 48 points overall. 9 of those came from the bench, and the weekly average was 38 points. So this chip certainly recovered a little bit of the momentum for them there. So that gives all the appearance of some detailed planning being put in place here. The wild card into the bench boost, it is a classic move if you've loaded the squad correctly. Yes, it can work. It does work for managers. It did work for this manager to a point, I have to say. Then comes the first triple captain that they played in game week 13. Haaland was the choice, but he only scored 6 points, and the team scored 32 points in total. The average that week was 35 points. Looking back, you would have expected Haaland to do the business. I'm sure the manager thought that at the time, and there weren't really many other captain alternatives. So sometimes you just have to accept that the luck wasn't there and just take it on the chin there.
And that's fantasy football in a nutshell, lads. Sometimes pick a right player and he still lets you down. It's not a case of bad management. It's more like football is laughing at you.
Okay, Mick. Okay. Yeah, interesting.
I don't know how to respond to that. I'm going to move on. Game week 19 saw them play their first free hit, a total of 33 points scored, compared to 40 points, which was the weekly average there. So again, it's not a success there. So, Eamon, after they've played 4 chips here, so it really is, as you say, a little bit of a mixed bag there. Oh yeah, you could say that. There's no problem about it. However, things do turn. Game week 24 brought the second wildcard, and this one absolutely delivered. They got 77 points scored against a game week average of 55.
Now, that's a wildcard for you. That's the sort of week where checking your ranking every 10 minutes with a wee smug grin on your face. That's a good result, that's what it is.
Would there be any chance you could maybe shut his mic off there a little bit?
Well, I'm not going to do anything because I think his microphone is liable to fall off the arm if I go near it. But do carry on there, Eamon.
Well, I'm trying my best, but I mean, he doesn't shut up. He's like a budgie there at the moment there. 3 weeks later came the second bench boost. 53 points in total, with 12 points coming off the bench. This was against a 45-point weekly average. So again, another chip that's done a little bit of work there.
So they're starting to string together some really effective chips here after a slow start.
They certainly are, yes. I'm careful now, host, that you don't start to turn into a budgie as well. You're starting to chip in a little bit more.
Sure, Eamon, I have to have some sort of a comment here. I'm sure the listeners don't want to hear you reading out the news of the transfers and the chips here.
Okay, look, we move on and we arrive at game week 33. Free hit number 2. 100 points when the average was 66.
Now we're talking.
Well, I wish you wouldn't talk.
Come on, I'm only just saying. That's a proper free hit, that, isn't it? I mean, that score would have your rivals wondering, have you actually hacked the game? It's a brilliant result, that sort is.
Well, look, a 34-point swing on a single chip, it is huge. I mean, this has to be one of the defining weeks of this manager's season, is it not, Eamon?
Well, let's wait. Finally, and this is probably the strangest moment of all. Game week 38. They played a triple captain and they've gone for Haaland, who promptly didn't turn up.
Eamon, you couldn't write this now, could you?
Well, I'm telling you, I looked at this system here. He went for Haaland and Haaland didn't play. And that's on the books. The captaincy instead went to the vice captain, who was Bruno Fernandes. And Bruno delivered 14 points as a player. But with the triple captain, that became 42 points. And the team finished with a total of 71 points and the game week average was 41 there.
Well, that without doubt has to be something called like fantasy football karma. Your captain doesn't kick a ball and somehow it turns into one of the best chips of the season. That's I thought he got lucky there.
Well, whatever he got points. That's what he got there. But again, he selected his vice captain very carefully, and that's something that perhaps maybe we need to talk about for some new managers or some existing managers. Definitely, is who's your vice captain?
So can we get the verdict on toe buggers here? I mean, 3rd place overall. So how would you score their chip strategy?
I'd give him a solid 7.5 out of 10. The opening half of the season wasn't particularly convincing. Like you said, the first wildcard underperformed. The first triple captain didn't work. The free hit actually lost ground against the average weekly score. But what did impress me was how they recovered. The second wildcard was excellent. The second bench boost delivered. That was 100 points from that free hit in game week 33. And then that standout chip performance of the season has to be having the foresight to select Bruno as your vice captain.
I'm going to go a little higher here. I'm going to give him 8 out of 10. Why, I hear you asking? Because 3rd place, it's not handed to you. This manager didn't panic after those early disappointments. They kept plugging away. When the opportunities came along late in the season, they absolutely nailed them. It might have been the flashiest chip strategy we've seen and not the cleanest, but it got stronger as the season went on, and I think kudos to the manager for that.
So toe buggers leaves with a bronze medal. It has to be probably, yes, quite a finish there. And proof that in fantasy football you don't have to win every chip, just need to make sure that the big ones land when the season is on the line. Now we're down to our runner-up manager. That is Lafayette Lions. On paper, there's some big calls here, but did they get the timing right? Mick, you're going to talk to us now about this.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. Look, I describe this as a season of 2 halves because when it comes to the chips, there were some excellent decisions mixed in with a couple of decisions that missed the mark there. So let's go through them. Game week 13 saw them play the wildcard, which produced 41 points. Their game week average was 35. So I wouldn't call it spectacular. I wouldn't be jumping up and down about, but 6 points is 6 points. Then in game week 15, they activated the triple captain. This is where we had a little bit of a wobble here. Haaland was given the captaincy, gave him the triple captain chip there, but he only got 6 points. The team still managed to make 54 points though against an average of 49. So look, the week wasn't a complete disaster there.
This is something I think probably all managers need to factor in, that the danger with the triple captain is it can look like you've gone for the obvious choice on Friday. And by the end of the game week, you're wondering what on earth has happened.
Well, that can be, yes, but sometimes you have to just go your intuition. You got to look and see on paper who's doing what. And as we've seen, sometimes players that you expect them to play don't play, and that's just how it goes. Then in game week 16, I'm going to move on there if that's all right. Game week 16, they decided to play their bench boost. The bench delivered 16 points, while the team scored 79 points. So, the game week average was 60 there. That's a good turn on that chip, if you ask me. And they then played their free hit in game week 18, but unfortunately, the momentum disappeared there. The team only managed to score 30 points. The average that week was 44.
It's almost worse than if you didn't play the chip at all there. Like, if you're going to use a free chip, still lose ground, it's hard to justify that activity and that strategy there.
It's fantasy football, Eamon, that's what it is. We move into the second half of the season. They played their second free hit and they scored a 95 points compared to an average of 66. Yeah, 95 points, lads. It's a huge swing and more than compensates for the disappointing first free hit that they played. Then in game week 38, you see them playing their second triple captain. Bruno Fernandes was selected as the captain. He got 15 points from. The team scored overall 72 points compared to the game week average that was 36. Then in game week 36, they played their second wildcard and that scored them 72 points. The average was only 65, so it's a solid result. And finally, in game week 37, they put out their second bench boost and the bench provided 6 points. The team managed to get a score of 79. The average was 53 there. So as you can see, a little bit of up and down there, a couple of wobbles here and there, but they did hit the target at times there, and they were in second place.
So before we move on here, how would you score this manager? I'm going to give Lafayette Lions a 9 out of 10 there, because look, the early triple captain on Haaland didn't work, and the first free hit was disappointing. However, they did recover brilliantly with 2 good bench boosts, a super free hit, and a wild card, and a decent second triple captain. So overall, they made good use of their chips. I think it was a really strong campaign. So I'm scoring them on that there.
I'm going to give them 8.5 out of 10 if I can, because they had a half decent chip strategy there, but it wasn't without its flaws. I think the tactics and the response was excellent. That's probably part of the reason why they finished in second place overall.
Very good, lads. Well, look, you're trying to sell it that it was a cracking campaign. There were just a couple of moments where possibly it cost them a shot at lifting the trophy there. So finally, anyway, we arrive at the champion, and that champion is Arkham Avengers.
I've been waiting for this one here. I can't wait to hear what Eamon has to say.
Yes, Eamon. So you're going to talk to us about this manager's chip strategy.
Okay, alright, okay. So let's get on with it here. Let's see whether the spoofer won the title with the aid of their chip strategies or managed to cod their way in. I'm only joking. Look, they kicked off things early with their first wildcard in game week 6. 55 points scored against an average of 46. It was a gain of 9 points, which is decent, but it's certainly not out of this world here.
I always like it sometimes when a manager plays an early wildcard, because it makes it, gives the impression there's a plan behind it. There's no point hanging around waiting for Christmas, so there isn't.
Well, and like you haven't even taken down your Christmas decorations from last Christmas. So look, I'm going to move on here. Game week 15 brought about their first free hit. They got 74 points compared to the average of 49 points. Then comes one of the defining moments of the season. They played their triple captain. Many managers have gone for this guy, Erling Haaland, and he hasn't performed for them. This guy went for him in game week 17 and he got 48 points back from Haaland. The team finished on 91 points altogether against an average 66 points.
Oh, Eamon, that's not a triple captain. That's daylight robbery. Man, when your captain is going to bring home 48 points, you're just going to sit back there with a cup of tea, watch the competition fade away. It's a very good result there.
As you said, Eamon, a lot of managers were going for Haaland as triple captain and didn't get that sort of result.
They didn't, but that's the spoofer for you. Look, he followed that up then in game week 18 with a bench boost, and he got 25 points for the bench. Now, the team scored 63 points in total, and the average that game week was 44.
25 points from the bench. That's outrageous, so it is. None of the managers had anything like that.
No, they didn't. Well, hold on. I think if some of the managers got 25 points from their starting 11, they'd snap the hand off you so they would there.
Yeah, look, as I said, this is the spoofer here. The second wild card was played in game week 28, and they got 74 points for that against a game week average of 53. Then, and I have to say this, arguably one of the best chips of the season, a free hit in game week 33, scored them 108 points. The average that week was 66. So they got 42 points over the average there.
Just want to add here, if there was a Hall of Fame for free hits, I think that one deserves to have its own plaque.
Yes, I'd like to put you in the Hall of Fame as well, Mick, but it's not working, so maybe one of these days we'd put you into a wax museum, though.
Yeah, man, I'm only just saying, I'm giving a bit of positive feedback there.
I wish you wouldn't give anything and let me just get on with this here. Okay, lads, okay. We are nearly finished here. Can we just roll on there? Game week 36 saw them play their second triple captain. Once again, he went for Haaland, and Haaland returned 33 points. The team scored 93 points in total, with the average being 65.
So the second triple captain worked as well. So he was consistent there with going for Haaland.
Very much so. And as he said, some managers, Haaland didn't work for him. He worked for this guy, all right. And finally then, just to wrap things up, in game week 38, we had the bench boost. Here's the only blemish in this manager's season here. They didn't get any points from the bench there. Now, the team still scored 43 points overall, and the average was 41. And it's like the bench had already decided they were on the bench for the final. We weren't going to do anything. And as I said, it's the only blemish of the season there. It didn't make much difference, though, really.
So, Eamon, what's your overall assessment here now of the Arkham Avengers manager?
What stands out for me here is consistency. There isn't a single disastrous decision here. Okay, you could argue game week 38 flopped, but by that stage, the spoofer had won the league. It didn't make any difference. All the other chips, though, they delivered significant gains over the game week average. The 2 free hits were exceptional. The first triple captain was season defining. The second one was very good. Both the wildcards improved the squad, and even that bench boost in game week 18 produced them with 25 points. I'll say this for the spoofer, he wasn't relying on luck. The planning was excellent, the timing was excellent, and over the course of the season, those chips gained and accumulated points that helped them get into first place.
Mick, anything to add to that?
I would agree with Eamon that, every manager gets 1 or 2 decisions wrong over a season, but this strategy had very few weaknesses, and the only real disappointment is that final bench boost, but it hardly mattered to it.
Yeah, it did. It didn't make any difference because he already had that cushion of a lead there. We already discussed this several episodes back that he had a very good season. This is the spoofer, and he's liable to implode sometimes during the leagues. But faultless. It was a very good run. It was tactically on the ball. They were with it. They were tuned in. They probably had a little bit of luck that went their way also.
So do we have any scores now for this manager?
I'm going to give the spoofer 9.8 out of 10. And of all of the strategies that we've looked at, it has to be one of the best strategies that we've reviewed. The only thing that's stopping it from being a perfect 10 is that final bench boost.
Well, Eamon, I'm going to go a little bit better. I'm going to give him 10 out of 10 here because I look at the chips and the chip strategies. You don't win leagues by accident. You put the work in. Yeah, all but one of them didn't deliver. And that's why he's lifting the trophy.
There you have it. Even Eamon was impressed with the Arkham Avengers manager. That has to be a first.
He's a worthy champion. You can't take that away from him. He's still the spoofer in my books. But this is that was the season for them. They have their 15 minutes of fame. Perhaps maybe he might come on and we could interview him to get some highlights and see what his plans are for the next season. This next season probably will be the defining season. As we all know, no manager, except for one, has managed to do the treble. And the question is, can the spoofer do this? If the spoofer does this, then I'll have to reevaluate my view of his football activity. But I'm not going to go pushing the boat out too far. I'd like to see how he gets on. And I'm not taking anything away from the spoofer. By the way, I think he has shown a lot of maturity this season. I know the previous season he fell into first place by accident and by default, and I'm not going into that again. I think we've covered enough. But for 25-26, he took command of that because there was a few different managers who were in first place and he managed to take that first place. So I'm not taking away from well done to him there.
Okay, so before we go, let's have a little quick look at the World Cup. Now, Hector, of course, has remained suspiciously quiet I think the last time we heard anything from him, the noise in the background sounded like he was on a beach because you could hear samba music, seagulls, and some fella trying to sell him sunglasses there. I don't know what Hector's doing, and I think he's forgotten that he was out there to do a little bit of reporting for us. Yes, he had to go home, we understand that, to help the uncle, and then it just fell into place. He was the perfect, person to be out there. He knows the lingo, he should do anyway, and we haven't heard anything from him. It's disappointing that he has remained quiet. I think our listeners might probably have expected to hear something of him, hear him talking at least to us, or talking to the listener, but it's a little bit disappointing there. And Eamon, when we look at the World Cup then, what do we make of it there? Well, there's a lot happening. Up to now, England have safely, booked themselves into the last 16. They had a 2-1 win over the Democratic Republic of Congo. You don't know what the way they call it. It's DR Congo and it's Congo DR. They seem to be mixing up, they're gone out of the competition now. And they had a scare, of course. They went a goal down. That would be interesting to see how they get on. I think they're relying on Kane too much to get them out of trouble there. And it seems they could do with more lads stepping up to pop him in a few goals there. Their defence was very shoddy. They've been caught napping a couple of times, and if they carry on like that, they're going home sooner rather than later there. Brazil progressed after beating Japan. Norway knocked out the Ivory Coast. Morocco are still there because they produced one of the shocks by knocking out the Netherlands on penalties. And so Scotland would look at Morocco and think, well, there's Morocco and Brazil still alive and kicking. And Paraguay completely stunned Germany in that penalty shootout. It was a great result for them there. And I know there's one result that makes Eamon happy. Yes, France had a convincing 3-0 win over Sweden. And when I looked at them during that match there, they were composed, they were clinical. And for the first time in the tournament so far, they actually looked like genuine contenders there for me too.
I've never seen Eamon smile so much. I thought he'd actually won the lottery or something, but just turns out that France had a clean sheet. That's all it was there.
Well, they've got Paraguay up next. Now that might not be as straightforward as they think, but if they play with the same intensity that they should against Sweden, I'd fancy their chances there.
Very good. Okay, well that just about wraps it up for this episode. So my thanks as always to Eamon and Mick for all their inputs and thoughts. Mick, don't worry, we'll fix that mic. Just hang in there. And can I just say a very big thank you to all our listeners for tuning in and joining us. So we hope that you've enjoyed the banter today and that you've enjoyed hearing the lads talking about the chip strategies of our managers there. So don't forget, tell your friends about us and subscribe there.
Before we go, if we do manage to get Hector, I wonder would he talk about the curse of Mayo GA football and their bid to win the Ireland and how they've been stymied on that and this curse that's supposed to be sitting on them.
Well, I don't know about that, Eamon. I think we could have trouble with that. I think we should leave best alone there.
Sorry, Mick, did you mention the word trouble and there and we're associating this with Hector? I mean, what do you think could happen?
I don't know, Eamon, and I think we should leave that out of it. Let's not get, voodoo land here on this.
I didn't mean voodoo land. I mean, lots of people talk about this curse, so can we not discuss this and see where it originated from? And do Mayo people believe in it there?
I don't know. I don't know. Host, I'm not too sure about this.
Well, look, we can come back to that another day. We might talk about that during the week when we're discussing what our next topic on the show will be. So look, folks, we'll be back with more chat and more banter. And over the coming episodes, I think we will take a look to see what existing and potentially new football managers need to consider and think about when they're putting a team together and what they need to look out for in the football season.
Yeah, that would be brilliant. I'd like that. We've done that a long time ago, so I think we're due that again now. Maybe update things ever so slightly.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we can do something on that there. Anyways, that's it for us. So take care of yourself wherever you are in the world. We hope that you have a good day and a good week. Mind yourselves. Stay safe. We'll be back. Slán.